Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Now we move to the next session. So the next session is moderated by Dr. Sumit Chaudhary, who's the founder and chairman and managing director of Leah Smart Cities. Sumit is an Indian entrepreneur, a business executive, and an author. Currently serves as a managing director and founder of the Leah Smart Cities, an IoT and AI company focused on telecom and ICT solutions for smart cities and smart sites. He worked with several cities in India and working with several cities in India, and he has been worked with IBM and Reliance in the past. Sumit, over to you. You have all the speakers, CB and everything. So over to you, Sumit. Thank you.
Thank you, Sashi. I think this is a great opportunity to continue the conversation from the last session. Some of you were there, and some of you I'm going to welcome into this session today. Uh, I've spent a long time working in the telecom industry as well as working in the IT of the telecom industry as a CIO of Geo, CIO of Arcom with IBM, where we were doing it for all the other telecom companies in India. And one of the things that we have seen progressively over the last 20, 30 years of development of data centers is the growth with which these data centers have gone, the technologies that people have used, the business models that people have used have evolved considerably over this period of time. So this session today is about new business models and technologies in this agile cloud world. We are going to focus on things that we didn't talk about in the previous session in terms of business models. Now, in the early days, late 1990s, we were working with SAP to take it to a data center. Earlier, it was always on-prem. And we started saying, can I sell SAP by the license only? Not in no installation required, no nothing. If somebody says, I want 30 licenses, can I do that? There weren't too many other applications which were allowing that kind of flexibility at that time. I'm talking about 1998, 1999. And we created an infrastructure in the US with US West to create a cloud-based. And that time the word cloud was not there. That time the word infrastructure as a service, cloud as a service, all of those things were not there. And we have seen that the first hurdle that we had to achieve when we were selling one application or an outcome as a service was that we had to buy the cloud infrastructure or the data or the servers or the storage or all of them had to be bought first, but we were selling it by the rupee, while we were buying by the millions. So the business model would just not work. It would take us a long time for us to recover that money, right? So one of the things that we had to do in that time frame was to actually force an EMC or a Cisco or a BMC to change their data models, their business models, sorry, not data models, their business models to sell by the cup. If I have three licenses, I'm going to pay them an equivalent of three licenses. And 22, 23 years ago, that was a big change for them. So they actually shifted the entire infrastructure, put it in the data center, and made those investments upfront. So somebody has to make that investment for somebody else to drink by the cup, right? So now we are going to talk today, and we have got an amazing panel to talk about these business models and the technologies that are there, right? So I'll just introduce the speakers. Raise your hand when I talk about you, and then when we discuss this, we can start back again. We have got Priyesh Shankaran. He's a manager field application for Comscope. We just saw the video from Comscope. Priyesh is a manager with Comscope in the data center solution business and automated infrastructure management. And he has got 20 plus years in the ICT industry doing exactly this, customer facing roles in business development, product development. And we are going to hear his experience and what the world is moving towards in new business models. We've also got Dr. Chinmay Hegde. He's the managing director of Astricos Consulting. Chinmay was there as part of our previous session. Lots of good insights. Chinmay has been a subject matter expert in the smart things, smart security and network space for more than 19 years. He has headed multiple organizations and at present, he's the managing director of Astricos, and it is a strategic consulting and expert organization for smart cities, smart infrastructure, and security in India, right? And he's going to talk about his experience doing work in the industry, both in the global smart cities, IoT, and security frameworks that he has developed. We have also got Sudhir Kundar. He's the country director of DE-CIX India. He's got 26 years of experience in telecom, FMCG, retail, and ICT sectors. And he's going to talk a lot about 5G, AI, IoT enablement, and digitization on the edge and interconnections. I'm sure we are going to hear about the topic in discussion today, which is about new business models and technology evolutions. We've also got an old hat who's worked with us in many different roles. Colonel Inderjit Singh, he's been a regular in the industry. He's the chief cybersecurity officer of Vara Technologies. And as an information security personnel, we'll see that security and resiliency are two of the big major drivers of this movement towards the data center and cloud. And people are really talking about how to really ensure that security is enabled. While we talk about it, is it still possible to break the system? So he will talk about how not to break the system, I suppose. So, and how to secure our infrastructure. He's a member of multiple councils, member of PMI, and he's done multiple certifications, which I will not go into right now. He has served in the United Nations mission in Democratic Republic of Congo. So congratulations, sir. That's a major honor to have you with us today. We also have Prasanna Lohar. I don't see him on the session, so I'll introduce him when he gets on board. So over to you. So Chinmay, I will hand it over to you, and then we'll go through the rest of the speakers.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Sumit, and thanks again, Bharat Exhibitions, for giving this opportunity. I'll directly jump into the slide deck and quickly take through, because I have some, the technical stuff to talk about today, like as usual I do on any of the Bharat Exhibitions, summits. So, okay, I'm making it a full screen. Is it visible? Please let me know. Are we on screen mode?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Well, so my topic today is intelligence-driven unified operations of data centers. Right. So moving on to the direct point, just a quick summary about our organizations. We are into smart infrastructure. When I talk about infrastructure, it comes the cities, data centers, ports, airports, and all these areas where we have a data analytical and the data intelligence platform, or in new buzzword, it is mainly the AI and ML related platform which does. And we are decorated with various different certifications. And we also possess the intellectual property in terms of data intelligence, which is mainly related to infrastructural analytics, right? So it could be the various different IT and OT related data, or any kind of a omni-specific intelligence process and system. And Astricos, by and large, is into the areas of data center, cloud infrastructure analytics, urban infrastructure analytics, industrial infrastructure analytics, and utility infrastructure analytics, as well as crisis management. So we are also having some of the sustainability related certificates related to city infrastructures. Now, coming to the focus area of today is the need analysis of this, the data centers, because data centers, as we discussed in the previous session also, are creating one of the important sustainability impact. The traditional way, which is shown on the left-hand side, where the resources, energy, water, land, ocean, airspace, etc., is moving to the next aspect of resource, the cyclic approach of sustainability, because use, reuse, these are the things which are coming to the picture mainly. So United Nations has added data centers as one of the imperatives in the sustainable development goals, because impact on the climate, impact on the power conservation, impact on the sustainability, water, and all such kind of areas. That's the reason. what are the drivers? When we talk about the major aspect out here, entire on the left hand side of your screen, you must be seeing the entire data centers ecosystem, right? So where it may be a small scale or a large scale or a hyper scale, right? Maybe it is a cloud or a data center. They have majority aspect is the bottom part of this is the facility systems. The data centers facility management is quite important, and who manages that is typically data centers would have the service contractors who would do that, and there will be workflow systems and asset performance management comes into the picture. And all these facility systems and IT systems, these are the two things, because when we think about data center, we only tend to think about the data and IT part or ICT part of the data center, but there is an invisible important part, which is the OT part or the facilities part. And and on top of that, there will be a dashboard, because the visibility is quite important for the organizations, various levels, may it be CXOs of the organization, may it be the internal operation team or whomever, so on and so forth. At the same time, the data centers are actually catering to the consumers of that is customers. Customers also require the visibility, especially nowadays. Every customer is treated in data centers. Maybe it is a co-locational, or may it is a cloud infrastructure, treated as the tenant, right? So the tenants, transparency to the tenant and transparency to the tenant, visibility to the tenant is quite important aspect. Now, how do we do this in terms of digital transformation? You see out here the workflow management, asset performance management, integration and monitoring, because IT and OT convergence is possible by means of integration. We saw this in smart city command control centers over the period of last half a decade or so, right? The same thing is the demand of the hour for the other infrastructures, and data center is quite important infrastructure. And the visibility portal to be given to the customer, that is where the transparency can be created and the reliability on the data center infrastructure increases. So what are we going to achieve the SLA performance, which is going to be better, asset performance is going to be better, resource optimization, standardization, enterprise visibility, predictability, and growth aspect. So all the three different layers of the data center operations would be covered. Now, the thing is, again, very important, the aspect is the power and the sustainability factor, right? So sustainability, when we talk about sustainability, power supply and power consumption comes into the picture automatically. Majorly, this is the heterogeneous environment, and typically what the infrastructure administrators are going to look up for is some of the key parameters such as PUE and others. These are all typical KPIs. Let us do a quick analysis, a quick case study, right? So the data centers entire infrastructure is divided. The power consumption is divided. Let us talk about 100 megawatt data center. 50% is only the revenue part. 50% is being consumed by the cost part. This is the global study, right? So major aspect is cooling systems consume 25 to 33% of the power. Similarly, CPU, the processing, CPU losses or any such kind of things are consuming 10 to 15% of total data center power. This is not small, right? So the power is an impact. That is the reason globally data center capacities are measured nowadays in terms of megawatts and gigawatts. That's the important aspect. What are all the quick cases that we can derive to? Regression analytics, if you have to do especially the collaborative and correlative analytics, right? So regression, insights, prediction, and all these things are fine. But at the same time, what is important is figuring out the collaborative impact. What is the impact? Why data centers, the temperature increasing by a degree is impacting on the climate, and it is impacting on the power consumption. So these kind of acute areas, measuring them is quite important. So these are some of the sample use cases. Of course, organizers will share with the audience later. Right now, I want to skip in the interest of the time, right? So the important aspect is collaborative analytics. That is what I want to highlight. Now, what is the importance of the data science in the unified data center operation? You need to know about the history, because data center equipments are generating an enormous amount of data. This enormous amount of data should be put into the use so that the informed decision making can be done. The informed decision making can be possible only if you know the historical trends and then plan for the prediction. So this is what typically a data analytical platform could do, right? How it could do that? This is the entire data center infrastructure, where this is actually the data is aggregated in the control platform, which is a unified operation control platform. And as part of that, a lot of logs are getting generated by each of these infrastructural equipments or elements. And out of that, there are certain canned KPI analytics which have to be done. That's according to the standard KPIs, because like the way smart cities have livability standards or any other aspects, data centers also have certain standard KPIs as part of data center standards. Next, every operator in the data center, you cannot expect them to be data scientists. So you have to give a layman's view. How can they do user-defined analytics, right? Give the do-it-yourself kind of a framework so that they can do. And then the visualization aspect, where digital twinning of the data center is quite important, right? Because you give digital twin is the emerging technology where the entire infrastructure, because after this COVID period, right, the remote operations have taken so much of the importance that they are driving the entire industry now. So giving a pure digital twin of the physical infrastructure is quite important, and then visualization to each and every kind of a KPI, such as energy efficiency KPIs, cooling KPIs, and all the related cost KPIs and sustainability KPIs. Then what good an information can be without putting it back into the operation, right? So whatever the data analytics or machine learning platform teaches, that has to be put back into the action in terms of SOPs or asset maintenance orders or maybe hybrid work items. That's the importance. So now again, coming to the thing, data centers typically have the 4 different layers: facility infra, IT network layer, rack PDU, and the compute and storage. If you talk to the IT companies, they would only consider this layer and this layer, that is layer number 4 and layer number 2. If you talk to the OT related companies, they will only talk about first layer and the third layer, right? So, but the KPIs of data centers are accumulation of, or the mix or summations or the any such kind of an aspect of the all 4 layers. So example here, data center infra efficiency is dependent on multiple 3 parameters from the layer number 3, right? Layer number 3 has also the dependency into the layer number, layer number 2, layer number 2 and 3, and all these are interdependent. What this particular screen shows is there are, in each layer, there are some one or the other aspects or the parameters which contribute to one or the other KPIs, which cumulatively decide the efficiency of the data center. So how do we do this? The thing is analyzing the event logs of each and every equipment, such as power supply equipment, power distribution equipment, or cooling equipment, or the racks and PDU, or the servers, etc. Right? So the important aspect is to maintain self-assessment framework. I'm finishing in a minute. Yeah, self-assessment framework which can help the data center operators or operational teams to guard themselves and assess themselves on day-to-day basis with the help of data intelligence. That's about it. A quick overview. Of course, any details any of the audience require, please reach out to me on this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chinmay. I would now go over to Priyesh Shankaran from Comscope Priyesh has been a major supporter of this event, and Comscope is supporting this project today. So Priyesh, I did introduce him in the past, so I'm not going to do the introduction again. So Priyesh, over to you. We look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much, Sumit. I hope I'm audible to all of you.
You are audible and your slides are visible. Carry on.
Perfect. Thank you. First of all, it's a privilege to be part of this gathering. I've been listening to the previous session also. Some great insights there from the speakers in the previous session, as well as the presentation from Chinmay. I'm coming in from an OEM's perspective. So I will give you a little bit about what's happening in the global as well as in India in terms of the network related trends. And while we are designing a data center, it's important not only to look at what you're supporting from a legacy perspective, but also important to look at from a current as well as what's coming in the future. We've already been talking about this over the last few years, and the adoption rates at which data centers are adopting the next generation speeds has been really alarming. I would say in the positive sense, I would say it's really good because it's supporting a lot of those underlying applications and the delivery to the end customers, to the application as a whole, to the end user as well. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about what's happening from a data center's infrastructure perspective with relates to the next generation network speeds of 400 gig and 800 gig developments. So moving on, in this, I'm going to cover a little bit about the trends and the speed roadmap. Looking at what are the next generation transceivers as we speak, and then the supporting underlying connectivity infrastructure. So this is typically what we are going to cover through this 10 minutes. Right. So if you see here, what's really the data centers looking at in the future? There's been a great proliferation that relates to connectivity speed. So if you see 4 key areas, higher bandwidth requirements, and that's kind of an understatement. And that's kind of driving higher switching capacities, but because you can simply not add as many switches as you would want, can that have adverse effect on power, cooling, as well as the other aspects of the cost aspect, which is a major aspect. The second is basically that's why technology is driving towards higher radix switches, where the ability of the switch to connect more connections than conventional. And the last point is to basically improve and enhance with the same connectors with the help of higher SerDes or serializer deserializer speeds as we're talking about. So in the network space, this is clearly what is really growing at a very fast pace. The hyperscalers have shown the way. We're already seeing the cloud data centers, the enterprise customers following suit. So if you look at the Ethernet roadmap, this is something which is published periodically, mostly yearly. You can see that the milestones are changing very dramatically. You're already seeing that the 10 gigs are almost out of the way, the 25 gigs, the 50 gigs, the 100 gigs, and the future 200, 400 gigs are basically coming into space. And this is what is essentially is making the point that really capacity crunch is driving the network speed investment. Some of the milestones you would see is green are basically already ratified Ethernet commercially available speeds. The light greens are basically the ones which are in development, and the white flags, if you can see, are future speeds. So as you see, this is just not a destination, it's just a journey. And as you would find the numbers more mind-boggling, you already see here deployments of 400 gig and future 800 gigs, which are basically, if you see the timeframes, are already either ratified or in development. And so the terabit revolution is not too far away from us as we speak. The timelines have kind of become spacing much more lesser, if you can see. We had a decade of innovation to get to 100 gig, but we are only seeing every 2 years, 3 years of speeds kind of jumping, quadrupling actually as we speak. So Comscope works a lot with the IEEE standards, the ISO IEC standards, etc. And what we are seeing is that to meet these growing demand of network, IEEE is really using 3 methods to increase the data rates. As you can see here, one is to the number of fibers that these transceivers are having to support. Be it the single fiber applications or the multi-fiber applications. There is also technologies around wave division multiplexing, and that's kind of driving multi-wavelength based signal transmissions. And then then comes the lane rates as we speak, because lane rates basically essentially means if I increase the lane rate and I'm running it on the same fiber, my overall transceiver speed increases. Likewise, if I'm running the same lane rate on multiple wavelengths on the same fiber connector, I'm basically able to provide double or triple or quadruple the bandwidth that supports. So all these three methods are basically variably being used in different IEEE projects to basically meet the desired outcomes of different transceiver speeds as we speak about. As you can see here, the blues are all the multimode type transceivers, multimode fiber optic transceivers. These yellows are basically all the single mode or the long reach transceiver options kind of things. The duplex is all green. The parallels are all the multi-fiber connectors, as we call it, which is basically also shown here. So let's look at what's happening in the transceiver and the connector space. So if you see the switch, one of the things that we're seeing in today's data centers is that the switch real estate is really fixed real estate. You basically, as you would say, see that over the years, it's the same 32 port switch that we see, which basically is deployed across. But with the help of the new electrical IOs or lane rates, as you would call it, 10 gigs, 25 gigs, 50 gig, 100 gigs, we are able to increase the switching bandwidth overall. And today we are talking about 3.2 terabytes and already moving to 12.8 terabytes with the 400 gig based transceivers that is going into the same 32 ports. And again, then 800 gigs when it comes up, it basically makes it double the capacity in terms of switching bandwidths. So we can say today, tomorrow, and then the future generations of transceivers predominantly going to be making the same, same transition as the way we are seeing, in the coming years as well. So what is the reason? How is this happening? One of the ways basically that they are developing this is, if you see here, the different generations of switching is basically driven by the ASIC designs. And if you see in 2015, the switch basically supported 3.2 terabytes of switch capacity, and that was using an ASIC which basically had only 128 channels of 25 gigs. With the enhancement in the ASIC processor, basically today we support 256 channels of 50 gig lane rates, and essentially that means with the higher lane rates and with the ASIC improvement, you're talking about a radix, or in essence, what radix means is the ability to connect more connections. So with the earlier switch, I could only support up to 128 connections. Today, I could support up to 256 connections of even 50 gig each. With the advent of the next generation 100 gig lane rates, are essentially 800 gig optics, you're going to see that the ASIC with the 256 numbers is going to give you 100 gig connections every connection. So essentially what it means is that the switches are becoming more and more powerful, and that's kind of driving the need for more and more opportunities to support multiple more connections with the help of the radix improvement that it's. So what it essentially means that as you can see here, that with the help of higher radix switches, you are actually reducing the number of switches that you need to connect a given set of server connections in your data center. So as you can see in this example, where I would use 6 different switches, I would probably use just a single switch to basically meet the requirements. And with redundancy, I will probably reduce the pair. So that's again another area that we are seeing in the fabric. What it essentially means is lesser switches, lesser power, and hence, because there are no multiple hops between switches, the latency is basically greatly impacted in the positive manner. If you look at the architectures that is changing, because now we can support more racks with a single pair of switches, I am able to now move away from individual rack switching concept, which is also called as top of the rack, TOR, to more of a zone-based deployment, also called as EOR, or end of row, middle of row kind of architectures. What essentially it means is that you now have a greater value of investments. Essentially, this migration is going to reduce the number of switch-to-switch connections, because there are no interconnects required with the switches basically able to connect with lesser number of switches. Obviously, the reduction in power, obviously, because of the number of switches basically reduced. Cost, which becomes significantly lower with the help of this approach, especially when you're building in the previous discussions, we're building more than say 100,000 racks today, 5,000 racks today. You're actually talking about the ability of the switch to connect more cabinets and more servers in that manner. And as you can see in this example, 400 gig is already an IEEE standard. Already we are seeing customers beginning to deploy 400 gig in some of the hyperscalers and cloud customers. And soon that's going to follow in the enterprise space, which is already on 100 gig networks today. So with 400 gigs, the essential schema of connectivity is using 16 fibers or 8 fibers. The 16 fibers can be achieved here. As you can see, this is a multi-fiber connector. You can see the reds basically as it transmits and the green as it receives. Basically, that's how the number of lanes are basically conducted through this fiber optic connectors. And so with the help of this, what will essentially happen is that the switch will now be able to support more connections with the help of one switch. So I can actually branch out from a 400 gig up to multiple 100 gigs, multiple 50 gigs, multiple 25 gigs to the same rack. And that's kind of in essence meaning that I can actually support up to 122, 192 server connections in the switch itself. What is this also driving is the ability of the backbone connections now becoming more and more multi-fiber than single fiber connections. So today already we have different technologies, and this is really fast evolving. This is becoming a standard today in most data centers. We also call it as MPO connections, multi-push-on connections. And what it means is that it has either 8 fibers, 12 fibers in one connector. We have 24 fibers already, and we also have a newcomer, which we call it as 16 fiber connectors, more designed for the 400 gig based speeds that is basically coming up in the space. So this is kind of driving the way data centers, which are relying now on plug and play infrastructures, than the conventional traditional models of connectivity. Preterm optical fibers are becoming the need of the hour. For many years in the single fiber pair instance connectors, we have been using and seeing the LC or the SFP based connections. But there also there has been a lot of development with much more smaller form factor connectors like the CS, the SN, and the MDC connectors, which basically gives you much higher density of connections. So all this is kind of giving you a sense of how dense the connectivity in the data center is going to be, and how it's going to be more important for customers to start planning an infrastructure which is living and growing and actually seamlessly moving to support the next generation speed. So let's look about what that means to customers like yourself. So if you see here, importance is the investment of the customers already made in their existing data centers. The ability to support the future speeds is very important. And that's where CommScope really has been focusing on from a very long time. And the very fact that we support today infrastructures up to 20 to 25 years of warranty, which means that essentially I can support up to 5 active refreshes. And every time a new actives is basically introduced into the system, my system should be able to support that connectivity without having to have any major disruptions in the data center. So that becomes an essential point of view, whether it's connectivity between switch to switch, whether it's been switched to server, whether it's been from a panel to a switch itself. So different solutions available with CommScope allows you to seamlessly migrate to the next generation speeds. And that's really the philosophy of the design and the area that we are talking about. Again, for existing installations, we do ask, these are the questions that comes to customers' mind. Will really my infrastructure support this next generation speeds? It's important to understand what type of infrastructure you are using and how we can seamlessly meet the next generation speeds. Important to see whether you're using the right count of fiber in your applications, whether you're using the right polarity, what kind of polarity you're using so that the transmission errors are not happening, single mode versus multi-mode, new types of multi-mode fibers are also developing. Can I introduce that to my data center? How is my redundancy taken care of? And a lot of other things, especially my loss budgets, because in optical fiber connectivity, the loss budgets plays a very important role to understand whether I will be able to seamlessly deliver this application over to the destination. And so that's where, when it comes to greenfields, which we are seeing the fast proliferation of data centers, we are really working on cutting edge infrastructures, which really supports the next generation speeds right from day one. It's already there, plug and play. And that kind of is driven by the components that we build into our systems. The ability to perform more than what the standards prescribe becomes that much more, that headroom is provided to you in this case. So be it the next generation MPO connections, the next generation single fiber connections, we provide the entire gamut of solutions itself. So in a nutshell, what does CommScope bring to the table, right? So you have outside plant fiber technologies, which are now much more high density. We're talking about in excess of 3,000 fibers in a single cable. That's the kind of densities that are being basically looked up by customers who are building very large data centers or interconnecting their data center spaces, right? So that's one aspect. Optical distribution frames, making sure that the connectivity within the data center is fully managed and easy to basically migrate. The importance of having a plug and play system, we call it as a high speed migration platform. That's kind of interesting because you can now scale, be very agile, add modules on the fly, and basically make your connectivity as quick as deploy time to market kind of things. Make sure that your time to market goals are achieved with the quick installation methodologies. Different fiber types are available, so different configurations that you would want to choose from. Different connector types, as we discussed, are available today to choose from. Different densities of shelves, different types of fiber connectivity infrastructures that is required, and how this can actually improve and scale to the next generations. We also build infrastructure pathways which support this fibers, high density fibers over the entire life cycle of the data center. And lastly, to manage all this, especially at the manageability layer, especially with things around what we are seeing today, remote management, etc., even the physical infrastructure, the network layers can now be managed at the physical layer itself using technologies like the automated infrastructure management. And this is something which is a core a requirement of some of the leading data center customers that we work with. So I would like to stop it at here and basically thank you so much for the opportunity to be speaking about this really fast growing emerging trend that we are seeing in our stuff. Once again, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I think what you bring to the table, what Comscore brings to the table is the ability for these data centers to scale I think what I saw was a very clearly thought through strategy for you from your side as a product, but also from the data center providers point of view to scale their infrastructure. So very good, and thank you for that. I am going to now move over to our next speaker. Our next speaker would be Sudhir Kundar. Sudhirji, over to you. I've done the introduction for you before, so I will not repeat it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Let's hear from your background. Thank you.
Yeah. First of all, thanks to the organizers and a very good afternoon to all of y'all. I'll try to ensure that I don't come in between people's lunch times, and it's a tough thing to do to encapsulate whatever I wanted to. So pardon me if I'm rushing through things, but I'll ensure that we complete in 15 minutes. So we at DE-CIX here, if you could have, yeah. So we typically make interconnection easy anywhere. That's what I would want to speak about, and the relevance of an interconnection platform like DE-CIX in today's data center and industry specifically. So if you see the Indian DC ecosystem today, from a top line view, we have about 162 colo data centers spread across 26 cities, and we have all IXs put together, about 20 internet exchange points overall. So data center in a nutshell is what I thought I should be telling you about, but there's enough and more spoken, so I would probably move to the next slide, where I would say, why is it that we have a data center interconnect fabric necessary, and how does it increase performance, security, flexibility, and also bring the cost efficiency, which typically becomes most important in today's day and time. So when we look at the conventional method, we see a very mesh kind of a setup wherein you have many to many, wherein you have challenges when it comes to performance, security, compliance, legal, and also a challenge on the company's strategy. And then obviously come the complexities that come along with this kind of a setup to manage. Now, when you look at it from a DE-CIX approach, what does typically solving an interconnection challenge at controllability and flow of data mean? If you could move to the next slide, you'll be able to see the DE-CIX approach, which says that it's a very seamless kind of a setup where in one side you have the enterprises, then on the IX platform, you have the content providers and the data center facilities on either side. And on the other side, you have the cloud service providers. This actually gives you a, excellent control on your performance parameters. It takes care of your security through the various mechanisms that we deploy, whether it is black holing, which is DDoS mitigation, whether it is filtering at the route server level. You get more routing stability and control. Also, what is more important is overall, if you see, you have in India at least 4 cloud service providers available, but globally, if you see my Frankfurt exchange typically would have about 60 plus cloud service providers residing on the same platform. As a result of which, it acts as an excellent enabler for any organization's digital transformation plans. And it helps in taking care of their concerns in terms of the parameters that I mentioned earlier. Moving to the data center's attractiveness. How does an interconnection platform typically help a data center become attractive? One of the main reasons that you will see that today the adoption of cloud and peripheral services has gone up to 5x in the last 24 odd months or 23 months, if you say so. And latency typically becoming the new currency today. One of the examples that I have shown here is our customer out there in Germany, and hopefully we'll serve them here in India as well, wherein from the current infrastructural capabilities to adoption of movement into DE-CIX through our mapped services, they were able to bring down their latencies to an extent of 90%, which is phenomenal. And the ease of doing business again comes in play, wherein it is a plug and play kind of a mechanism for them to be, looking at. So now, what do key takeaways of this mean in terms of new enterprises, and what is the demand that can come in the next slide? What are the demands from a enterprise towards interconnection? So what we today see is digital everywhere for everyone and in any shape and form, especially when latency becomes the new currency. We see controllability of data becoming more important. And as we saw during the pandemic, and some figures I will bring to the table sometime later, shows that we were able to serve not only the requirements at the enterprise level, but also from a home user's point of view. And that's where we were able to get the interconnection services. Digital transformations are happening. We got the network density addressed, and that helped transformation processes for a lot of content providers, especially who wanted a large amount of output within a shorter span of time. And obviously, being a neutral player, it helps us a lot. So moving to the next slide, what is it that we have as an impact on enterprises when we bring the new model today? And as it is said that, and as I heard the earlier panelists mention, that edge is something that will typically play an important role while the data is being consumed in a manner in which it need not come to the central servers, and it can be consumed at a local level. And we've personally served a lot of enterprise-specific solutions today, whether it is BFSI, whether it is entertainment, whether it is healthcare, edutech, so on and so forth. So overall, it all hovers around the ability to manage your performance, security, flexibility, and most important is the cost efficiency to the matter. So typically, if you see, how does it affect an enterprise when it comes to the future readiness? So I would say it is the heart, hand, and the brain when it comes to the future innovation, wherein you will have 5G, which will typically act as the heart. You will have IoT, which acts as the hand, and AI, which will be the brain. We are actually speaking today at the cusp of a completely new age in global economics, wherein enterprises, regardless of their size and heritage, will redefine their activities and their go-to markets. This is where the digital triangle that DE-CIX brings to the fore will be of paramount importance for them when they start looking out for better, faster, resilient, secure options available in the market. What are the typical challenges, if I want to say, is controllability of their infrastructures and data flow, to keep it short, and then moving to what is the decision-making criteria and the competitive differentiator at an attractive data center ecosystem today. One is the interconnection platform, which is very essential. Two is the network density. Three, obviously, is the neutrality available there. So when you say what are the standards, I would say setup and design, power, security, uptime, and most important is the pricing and commercials. So now if we move to the next slide, why is an IX important? I would spend a little bit of a time here moving to the next slide, wherein what is the importance today of an interconnection platform like DE-CIX to the data center ecosystem in itself. First and most important point would be the severe bandwidth prices that typically an enterprise pays today, and as enumerated by Sunil in his earlier discussions, customers end up paying, whether it is an enterprise customer or an ISP today, end up paying humongous costs to the telcos for their bandwidth. And this is where an IX, especially like DE-CIX Mumbai, where we help our customers offload at least 92% of the traffic, thereby immediately leading to cost optimization and then deployment of that capex in their mission critical growth plans. Latency, as we always been saying, will be the new currency and is the new currency. And by default, latency becomes important win-win for any organization which has got an IX in their data center. Scalability and secure cloud-based infrastructural availability becomes hand in hand when it comes to the bandwidth requirement as per need. Resilience obviously gets improved, and overall attractiveness for colo customers and density of cross connects leads to a lot of ROIs, if I can say so, in a short manner. One of the most important factor here to consider for any organization, whether it is enterprise or non-enterprise, is the unique ability from our side to have a single access port, which gives multiple service offerings with one particular infrastructural investment at the data center end. And through the same port via a SD-WAN partition, we would help them with peering services. We help them with direct cloud service, which as of now in India today, we have AWS, Azure, Oracle, and Google Cloud availability across our data centers. And then obviously, from if it is the A end of the business, wherein you have the Netflixes and the Amazons of the world, you have the reach and access to multiple networks at the same location. So now when we look at this and come to the DE-CIX ecosystem, what is DE-CIX all about? We are in the 26th year of our existence globally and spread across 30 exchanges and 2,300 networks connected, greater than 500 plus data centers connected across the world. When we come down to India today, we very proudly would want to inform all our participants that we are the fastest growing interconnection platform with 4 exchanges, greater than 460 connected networks, and 50 data centers present across 4 metros in India today. DE-CIX Mumbai is Asia Pacific's largest internet exchange point amongst 153 exchanges in 29 countries. And one of the key enablers that you see is, as I enumerated some time back, is the fact that you have a single access giving multiple services. Peering, I alluded to some time back. You have the direct cloud. Maps is nothing but Microsoft Azure peering services, which will soon be launched in Mumbai and Chennai, followed by the other 2 geographies that we are present in. And in a short span of time, we will also have blackhauling, which is DDoS mitigation and globe peer coming in, thereby leading to an accelerated help and development to both our enterprise and non-enterprise customers. If you look at our presence today, we are spread across 8 data centers in Mumbai, Delhi. We have 4 locations, followed by Chennai and Kolkata. Moving to DE-CIX Mumbai now, the strategic advantage, if I say, typically the biggest IX in the Asia Pacific region would help both sides, as I said some time back, and the neutrality that comes into play helps a lot of organizations. And today we come across cases wherein we get customers calling in, especially to check whether we are present in a certain data center. And based on the DE-CIX cloud availability in a particular data center, they want to go ahead and sign up with the particular data center and take business forward from there. Also, what is more important is we guarantee compliance with all the Indian rules and regulations today, as a result of which we are very happy to say that we are the only legally compliant exchange here in India. Hence, we are able to serve not only customers here in India, but also in the SAARC region. Now, when we serve a large 1.3 billion population, you also need to look at the next steps. And that's when I said that when we look at an edge strategy collaboration with other organizations, very soon you will see some great things happening on that front as well, whereby our infrastructural and thought process leadership will come to play in this particular segment. Last but not the least, as I said some time back, while we have 60 plus providers across our global ecosystem, in India we are in the discussion stage with 3 other cloud service providers other than the 4 ones that I mentioned earlier. Now moving ahead to our relevance across verticals, and this becomes extremely important for us in today's age and time, especially because of the fact that last 2 years at least I've been able to have conversations across various CIOs, CXOs that I knew, that most of them went back to the drawing board and people have made decisions of investments not from on-prem but to move into cloud. And in their digital transformation journey, we've helped a lot of customers, whether it is across verticals like BFSI, entertainment, edutech, healthcare, transportation, so on and so forth. So typically, I would say it's about digital for everyone, everything, and everywhere. So moving across to the next stage, this is a very heartening number that I wanted to show to the panelists as well as to a lot of our audiences who would be paying attention now, is the fact that what a robust mechanism can help right from a work from home environment and then living your life in the new normal kind of a thing, wherein our platform witnessed an OTT and VOD traffic growth of 76%, a gaming traffic of 1324%, and going down right up to 219% when it came to hosting. Now, these figures are in the range of about 18-19 months, typically the same time frame when you had the pandemic come in and we were struggling to get life back to normal. So, as we say, latency is the new currency, and digital applications and contents will come closer to people and businesses. Moving to the next slide and the next one then. What I would like to end my time, wherein I think I have about 2-3 minutes to go, is to let you all know that for the 6th time, which will come in the next slide, that DE-CIX has had the honor of being awarded for the 6th consecutive time as one of the best internet exchange operator for 6 consecutive times at the Global Career Awards held by Capacity Media. And over here in India, by virtue of several firsts, whether it was launching our direct cloud when it was required during the pandemic, or the exponential growth that we brought into the table, helping both consumers from enterprise and non-enterprise class segments. We were blessed to get one of these awards, wherein we were acknowledged as the fastest growing interconnection platform anywhere in the world. So having said that, gentlemen, thanks a lot for your time and energy. So let me tell you, we are here to solve the interconnection requirements of tomorrow, today, and DE-CIX in India offers a comprehensive solution, and whether it is peering, cloud, private network interconnects, or a single contract for multi-cloud access, which becomes an important component today while I do my discussion with a lot of cloud service providers where we help their customers on board. So with this, I would like to say thank you very much to all of you all for giving me this time and podium to going back. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudhir. Really appreciate your presentation and the insight that you have given. I will now move to Inderjeet Singh ji. Colonel Saab, over to you. We have already given your introduction, so I will not waste time there. You represent Vara. We have been engaged with Vara for some time now, so I know a little bit about the company. So please carry on and give us your insight. Colonel Saab, are you on?
Also, we can't hear you.
Your screen is also not visible. I think we have lost him. So instead of waiting for him to come back on, we'll take him after we hear Prasanna. I saw Prasanna's was online. I can't see him as well.
No, sir, he's not there.
He is not there. Okay, he was there just now. So we'll wait for a few more. I can see Colonel Saab back on. Are you on, Colonel Saab? Can you speak a little bit so that we can hear you?
Yeah. Am I audible now? I think there was some network issue which came up.
Yeah,
So
you are audible. You're audible. Carry
I'll
on.
switch off my video. I think that will be better for a while. I think let me just check. No, it's okay. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, perfectly. So good afternoon, everyone, and thanks Bharat Exhibition and Sashi ji for having me here, and thanks Dr. Sumit for chairing this session. And very interesting discussions what we're having around the data centers, and that's I think the way forward when we're looking in, talking about the disruptive technologies altogether which are coming up, and the biggest enabler is the data centers what we talk of, and all the technologies, whether it's IoT, 5G, your IIoT. The things which are going to be changing is the data centers, but then that's edge data centers, because we are talking of the cognitive intelligence.
We are losing. Colonel.
We're
Not able to hear you, Colonel.
talking of the intelligence, right? Let me switch off my video.
Yeah, switch off your video. That might be better. Yeah.
Yeah, now it's okay.
Yeah, carry on.
Now it should be fine, right? Let me speak if I'm okay. Otherwise, I'll. So I was just telling that cognitive intelligence using the edge data centers would be the future. And why so? Because we talk of the necessity. That is your 5G, and my earlier speakers have adequately brought out the latency part as a new currency, very important, right? We talk of the IIoT, your edge computing, your all of them talking of the edge. So the earlier data centers which were there may not really suffice meeting the requirement. And why data centers become very important? It is, we are looking in from a perspective of fusion of your digital, biological, and the physical world altogether. And we want the answers immediately. If you're trying to do, change of dresses, from the that you want to see how I look, and you want that AI engine to really work, you want it in a jiffy, you want it on a fly. If that information has to really go back to a data center, get processed, come back to you, it's going to be a very difficult proposition, right? Same way, the future technology are developing an interdependency and redundancy on the outcome. And this is what we are seeing, right? So the future is going to be very different from what we are seeing today. Your connected cars, your driverless cars has got a radars, which really has to talk to the data center, right? It has got an interconnectivity between other sensors altogether. We are wanting to have that cognitive intelligence at the edge. And that makes all the edge data centers to come up. And it's going to be a kind of situation like you just understand. If you've got a smart city with so much IoT devices altogether, each vertical, whether it's your waste management or your water management or a grid management, you're going to have a different kind of data center, which are going to be a kind of a necklace of data centers all around the city itself, rather than having 2 or 3 data center or 1 data center to just process. So the complete digital environment is changing how we experience the physical world, and the edge data centers are going to be the game changers for that, right? So while we see the current reality where we are seeing all Fortune 500 companies going away, and the 67% of the CEOs, in fact, they are looking in for the technological disruption which are happening, and most of them, because of the COVID-19, have migrated towards the digital world altogether, and they have brought in a lot of digital disruption. A lot of unicorns coming up, and they all are data hungry and huge data consumption, right? And 87% of the company think the digital transformation is a competitive opportunity. That's what is the way forward for them, and that is how it really works. So what it really looks like, right? And if you put together all the verticals or the technologies which I just brought in, if we need to use them, we really need to understand how they are really going to function, right? And if we have the data centers, like I told you, a necklace of data centers with low latency and real-time information, we really need to understand how they're going to operate, right? And that is what is a bigger game changer, right? But most of the people right now are still getting on to the erstwhile model of the data centers, but this is a new normal where we're going to have lots of edge data centers coming up right now. So right in time, we need to understand who's right, who's wrong, what is the kind of technology which we are trying to think of, how we are going to implement it, how those devices are really going to communicate. Take the example of Sophia, the robo which is there, and she answers in the real time. Practically, it's an amalgamation of AI, your IoT devices, your cognitive intelligence, your data center where the data is being processed and getting back, and she replies to you in real time, right? So if it has to go to really a normal data center where your data is going to be processed, just see the amount of time which it's going to take to respond, right? But if you have an edge data center, it's going to be a kind of total new environment which we are seeing, right? So what drives to you to go to the edge data centers? You have so much amount of data. You don't want the complete data to be processed in your main data center. You don't want to store that. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to push the computing part to the edge, right? Where you are able to store, you're able to process, you're able to react faster, right? So that is what you're trying to do. And what in the case of the normal situation, had we are not been talking of the latency, by the time you would have sent the data and you want the response, your complete stream would have expired. So there'll be of no use of that particular data if it is being delivered late to you. So a smart city with different data centers is the way ahead. And these are the areas where low latency is required. Everybody talks of AI, but to enable AI, a normal data center would not suffice. We are talking of the predictive analytics. We are talking of the prescriptive analytics. We are talking of the autonomous vehicles with so many sensors and radars. We're talking of the robots with all AI, ML, put together. We are talking of life safety and health monitoring in real time, right? So all these are the consumers of the edge data centers. And while we talk of the fourth industrial revolution, and that's really a buzzword where we're saying that 5G is going to do it, we have the IIoT going to do it, but where is the data going to be processed? And that's where your edge data center really plays a major role, right? So cognitive enterprise is the way ahead, and that is how we are going to be using all these technologies put together using the edge data center. So while we talk of the edge data center, we talk of the cognitive enterprise. The enabler would be outside, it would look like a digital reinvention. And inside, it is going to be a cognitive transformation. That is what we are about to see that in times to come. And every company is going to be a technology company, and every company is a platform company, and every company is an experience. And what is the enabler? Your edge data centers with all the technologies put together, which I just told you, right? So if we talk of the architecture wise, you have the core data centers where you have all the hyper fabrics which are interconnected. You have near edge data centers, kind of the telecom gateways, which are there with you, giving you the services of Wi-Fi and wireless, 5G, microwave, etc. And then you have the lowest layer becomes the edge data center. And they are the IoT gateways, they are the telecom gateway data centers, right? And they would be providing the wireless connectivity based on your Bluetooth or RF or Wi-Fi connectivity to your devices, which are connected in a kind of mushroomed way on the edge, right? And that is how you'll have large number of edge data center. And that's why I told you a particular city or one city would not just have one data center, it would have a necklace of data center all around, right? To give a real-time information, right? So the edge data center is practically, in one terminology, if I need to put it, it is edge of the existing data centers, right? So it is a property of data. You're trying to push it there. You're trying to give it reliability. You are able to take care of the latency delays which are there, right? You're improving on the cost, the TCO to the companies which happen. So what it's going to look like is the dedicated data center, which are today, we are moving towards the micro data centers, right? Which are just power in a tower shack, which is there. Then we are talking of your mobile or the temporary data centers in vehicles or containers, right? And the edge data centers would be just in a container, placed in one corner, like you see a normal, towers having with the container all around, right? And you can also have positioned in a normal house where you have lots of devices put together. And lately, maybe beyond what we are thinking of, it's the data center on the human. And that's where we talk of the serverless environment being the future of the data centers. So that is how it's really going to change the game. So I will stop here, right? And would like to take any questions if you have.
Thank you so much, Indrajit. Your presentation was insightful. I don't see Prasanna, so we'll go to some questions. And I have one question that has come in for Priyesh. So Priyesh, the question was more to do with the use of CommScope in the telecom infrastructure. Are you seeing implementations of your in the actual core network that telecom companies are doing? Or are you seeing it mainly being used by enterprise and data center providers?
Actually, we are seeing across the breadth of different flavors of data centers, whether it's the telco-driven data centers, whether it's the edge DCs that they are driving, or the MTDCs, what we call it as multi-tenant data centers. we're already seeing requirements coming in from all different streams. And so absolutely, we do have, in fact, we work with some of the leading global telco companies across, where they're building their central offices, data centers, the switching centers, basically, where they have infrastructure moving completely to the IP networks. So there they require optical fiber. So moving from the traditional network connectivities to the more optical fiber centric fabric architectures as well. So yes, absolutely, we do have solutions across the stream. In fact, we have a separate vertical across for service providers as well. So yeah.
Okay. And the second question also to you would be on when you're in India versus what you're seeing abroad. Are you seeing similar kind of demand? Are people asking the same kind of questions over here, or you're seeing that we are still lagging behind as a in terms of building up capacity and backbone capacity on the network?
No, actually, the gap is kind of come much more closer. We have kind of, in fact, India is adopting technologies much faster pace than some of the other countries. So if you see, the hyperscalers are also building their data centers in country. A lot of global customers are upgrading their infrastructures. So because India is such a growing digital economy, a lot of the eyeballs are now moving towards that, and hence the infrastructure spends are also moving in that direction. Basically, we are trying to reduce the learning curve of some of the developed countries by jumping into the next generation technologies much faster than some of the others. So I would say India is on par, if not better, in terms of adoption. We're already seeing that. It's just that the infrastructure space is there's so much of investments happening in different areas. We hope to see everything come to a normal where this becomes like a trend across every different customers, whether it's the enterprise scale, it's the small, medium SME enterprises also upgrading the infrastructures already or moving to the cloud, many of them. And so that's why these MTDCs are sprawling up in a big way. A lot of global customers, global investments is happening in these MTDCs, or as I call it, multi-tenant data centers, where you don't require to build your own data center, you could just get into a colo. That's kind of driving. And India is not a single city or single region, it's a like we divide ourselves into 4 regions, and regional concept is happening there. So the regional demands are met by regional data centers, and then there's a central cluster of cloud that's basically meeting the backend requirements. So
same question probably to Chinmay and Sudhir also, if you want to take that on. What are the trends that you're seeing? As how do we compare with the global benchmarks that you are seeing?
In my perspective, India has caught up with the global trends in terms of data center infrastructures, and maybe a little more because of the policy push that was lacking and which has come in fact, right? So the policy push has been contributing a lot in terms of the data center infrastructures. So the gaps are quite narrow at this moment.
So my take on this is pretty similar. While I've been in touch with a lot of data center players, both Indian and multinational ones, while they want to have DE-CIX as a platform here, and especially with our close working in folks with Germany and US, where we are still in that accelerated mode of growth, we see that the Indian ecosystem suddenly has got unprecedented vibrancy, focus. Like take an example of Chennai. While I heard somebody saying that Chennai, Mumbai is not where it should be, and I respect his opinion, but if you look at the way Chennai today pulled in the kind of thrust from the industry today, and about 17,500 odd crores of investment being committed by all large players. And every organization that is building today is building from a future proofing of what they see as a hockey stick curve that will eventually come into this segment, and exciting times ahead for sure in the next 3 to 5 years in the Indian ecosystem. And,
one thing that we did not talk about much today, though it was part of our scope, and ask a last parting conversation. Are you selling differently from a business model, or are you selling the same thing the same way? Your selling perspective.
You're asking
You're
me?
expecting the data center guys to sell differently. You're expecting the application guys to sell differently. But all of you are infrastructure players. Are you selling differently? What's the business model change that you have seen?
See, if I can take the liberty of answering it first, if you look at us specifically, we've seen a huge shift in the way, in the at least last 2 years, in the way in which the entire scoping of services is concerned, by having understood what a interconnection platform like us can do for both sides, and the way we've been able to do end-to-end management of entire customer's life cycle when it comes to international companies wanting to set up shop in India and get that accelerated mode of ease of doing business out here, or for that matter, the Indian ISPs and the enterprises. The shift has been definitely there, and it is more towards understanding what my client today wants, and then tailoring your go-to-market, if I can say so, in a manner in which you go beyond the obvious and ensure that the best possible outcome comes in a collaborative manner.
I would just add to Sudhir's point that yes, we see we're doing a lot of what's been done before, but the businesses have improved to meet the availability requirements, because the expectations from the customers are not the same as before. So that's kind of forging us into different ecosystems.
Priyesh, there looks like. Indrajit, any answer to that? Are you selling differently your services?
And the execution and the implementation aspect.
Okay.
Yes, there is a definitely a difference which has come in, and while you are positioning the services, right, and especially from a perspective of the security, I'll talk of it. I think we didn't talk the security aspect of it, and most of the data centers now are more engaged towards the MSSP or the MDR model for the security for the enterprises. While everybody moved to the cloud, the security was being, kind of a thing which was not thought of earlier, and the MSSPs are really catching up. And that kind of offering and the high demand of that kind of services is really picking up in India now.
Wonderful. Chinmay?
Absolutely. So I second Colonel's opinion, and in addition to that, the data privacy and security has been the demand, and the demand on the service providers is also to scale up the infrastructure to move to that. But at the same time, the users or the customers' behavior has changed to take everything as a service, right? So mainly the infrastructure as a service, and payment also in the same way that, like, they want to not spend the things upfront and scale on the go. This has been changing last maybe 3-4 years, right? Earlier it was like, okay, no, you give it in my premise, I will have it in my premise, kind of a thing. But now it is that behavior is improving or moving towards the as a service model. But at the same time, demand of data privacy security also increases.
I think we have had a fairly interactive session today. We have heard most of you. If anybody has any parting last comments, otherwise we are going to end the session and hand it over to Sashiji to close the session for today.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sumit.
Thank you.
All
Thank
of
you,
you.
Sumit.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
Yeah, Sashi, over to you.
So thank you so much, Sumit, for chairing this session. And thanks to all the speakers, Priyesh, Chinmay, Sudhir, and Colonel Inderjit Singh. Thank you very much. Look forward to see you all in the next event. And we hope the new data center business will flourish in our country. And as discussed, we need to look at various aspects when we build a new data center. But I don't understand one more thing, as we've been discussing, me and Sumit several times, even with Chinmay also. Every time new smart city comes, there is a new DC there. I think we should stop creating the new DCs, and the available DC should be part of it, because there is a unnecessarily the budget goes and the real smart city doesn't happen. Sumit and Chinmay can put more weight on that, whether it is correct or not. But what I feel is we should not have, even it's a small smart city, there is a DC for that.
Yep.
That's right.
Maybe we need to look into those things when it comes to smart city, DC business, etc.
Yeah, I think
Having said
the
that,
push for that needs to come from a central location. Otherwise, we have got consultants who don't understand this concept and
Absolutely.
who have forced every city to build a data center. I think all the vendors over here would nod and saying good that it got built. Otherwise, so many projects they have won now. But otherwise, we have recommended always to have one data center at least at a state level, and do at least all states together in one location, and do the cloud and do a backup DR on the cloud. So that's the recommendation that will still remain. Let's see who picks it up.
In fact,
and I also like what Sumit has said. We are missing the skilled people when it comes from the freshers passing out from the college. It takes 2 to 3 years. By the time he gets onto it, what to be done, he leaves that job and join another one.
Yeah,
That's the challenge.
add to that point, about a month ago when I met the mission director of smart cities, he was saying that this year, maybe in next 3 to 4 months, we will see a policy coming up that all these ICT services as a service, right? So I think that is going to drive the same agenda what we are right now talking.
Thank you.
Good.
We'll wait for it.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, thank you.
Interesting.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Take
Thanks a
care.
lot.
Okay.
Thank you.
soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
It's a
Bye.
pleasure meeting you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Same
Thank
here.
you.
Same here,
Thank
Colonel.
you all.
Thank you.
Bye. Yeah,
Thank you.
bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.